Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today we've got a little bit of a fun video, just some random speculation and maybe what could be a new army coming to Warhammer Age of Sigmar one day in the future. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, we are talking about the Kurnothi. For those who don't know what the Kurnothi originally came to us in Warhammer Age of Sigmar in the version of Skaith's Wild Hunt in Warhammer Age of Sigmar Underworlds. They are the bestial elves that worship the god Kurnoth, who we'll get to in a little bit talking about him. But the Kurnothi are a bunch of models, and we've recently just got another Kurnothi model confirmed coming out in Warhammer Quest, the new one, the Cursed City box set. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about what could a Kurnothi army look like in the future, and we'll talk a little bit about the things we know about the Kurnothi and their patron deity Kurnoth. So let's get started. So exactly what are the Kurnothi? Well, the Kurnothi are worshippers of the god Kurnoth. They're wild and fairy creatures that are both primal yet also noble, and they are spiritual avatars of nature. These creatures, they concentrate their wrath upon those who desecrate the natural order of nature itself and the natural order of the world as such, and they generally appear to be either, as we've now found out, pure looking elves, or these elves crossed with these beasts, generally very satyr looking elves, or this centaur looking creature you found here, which is Skaith of the Wild Hunt. Kurnoth himself is a hunter god represented as nature's wilderness and hunger, and is one of the survivors of the world that was. He's known in many aspects as Kurnoth the Huntsman, Kurnoth the Killer, Kurnoth the Seducer, and the Old Stag. Kurnoth and the Heartwood Glazed Sylvaneth defended Kurnothil in the realm of Gyran during the Age of Chaos, but as he was at his weakest during the winter season, he was too weak to resist the forces of Nurgle, and ultimately he was defeated and slain in the Battle of Tears by the servants of the Plague God led by Horticulus Stilimax. His spear and what remained of his body were rescued by what remained of his loyal followers, and they escaped. Their forces were slowly reduced, however, and only a single Dryad managed to return to Alariel with his remains. That spear is now wielded by Alariel in battle. She also uses it to commune with her soul consort Kurnoth during certain seasons and lunar cycles. Kurnoth is also one of the several deities that are worshipped by the Sylvaneth, and he's the only one worshipped by the Sylvaneth on the same level as Alariel. In fact, that makes other Sylvaneth so wary of the Kurnoth hunters' elevated status among Sylvaneth that many feel uncomfortable around Kurnoth hunters, or in fact they treat them almost as nobility because they are his chosen disciples. The Kurnoth hunters are living embodiments of his wrath and power. Their creation was a result of Alariel's awakening in her war aspect during the season of war during the Realmgate Wars. The Kurnoth hunters were given a position in her royal moot in the form of the Huntmasters of Kurnoth. And in particular, one of them, shrouded in mystery, the head Huntmaster of Kurnoth, described as being somewhere between Alariel's Captain of the Guard, Martial Advisory, High Priest of Kurnoth, and Spy Master, all in one, he sort of acts as. But Kurnoth is definitely a deity that is quite notable in the realms of Age of Sigmar, and it'll be quite interesting to see where an army following him goes. So I think the next question, after we've talked a little bit about, I guess, Kurnoth and the Kurnothi and all of that, is what will the army actually be? Will it indeed be its own separate faction, or will it be a part of the Sylvaneth army? And for me, originally I wanted this army as its own standalone singular faction, but I don't think that's what I want anymore. In Age of Sigmar, we've roughly got, I think, about 24, 25 different factions now, and a lot of them have very limited model ranges. I think for the Sylvaneth that the Kurnothi is actually a fantastic way to add more models to that range and give it a different way to play. So for me, I would actually like to see the Kurnothi added to the Sylvaneth army and made a part of the Sylvaneth army, really. I think they give a lot of sort of aesthetically another take to the army. They give you lots of options potentially on how we go about adding them in. But on the same side, I wouldn't be upset if they were their own army as well. I think they've got enough there that they can stand on their own 2 feet. Maybe it's something we get maybe similar to Orc Warclans, how we've got maybe a host of Alari or host of Kurnoth and then the combined Sylvaneth allegiance. Maybe that could be a thing, which maybe is the best way to do it, whether you can play either as a separate allegiance or you can play the joint allegiance. But I think there's a lot of options, and I don't think any way to do this is particularly wrong. I wouldn't be upset to see them in a book like Orc Warclans. I wouldn't be upset to see them just completely rolled into Sylvaneth as part of it. I also wouldn't be upset to see them as their own standalone faction. I think we need to stop adding more smaller factions to Warhammer Age of Sigmar and start expanding on those ones we have and giving more depth to the armies that we already have in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So let's get looking into the faction proper and what we think maybe we could see in a Kurnothi army going forward, whether or not that is part of a Sylvaneth Allegiance or Alliance book of some sort of the forest, or as a standalone faction. So let's start looking at some of the characters that we find from the old Wood Elf line. It's quite clear that Kurnothi may be reminiscent of the old Wood Elves from Warhammer Fantasy, and maybe this is the update, much like we get the Melusai and the Kinnarai for Daughters of Cain, and that we've got the Lumineth updated for the High Elves, maybe the Kurnothi, and they, not even maybe, they do seem like the spiritual and descendants of our Wood Elves from Warhammer Fantasy times. So I've got a few pictures up here of a bunch of different Wood Elf characters and a few different types of them to maybe have a little bit of a chat about each one and how we think we might see it and which ones I think are more likely to be seen really out of these. So for me, well, the first one on the left is the old Waywatcher Lord. So this was a particular character that got its own rule set later in the game, but for times was actually just like a variant of a Glade Lord. You could upgrade your Glade Lords in particular fashions, and this was one of them. But with the model that's come out from Warhammer Quest, well, that's been revealed from Warhammer Quest rather, it does look like we're getting like archer character sort of things like this. I think this is the most stereotypical elven vibe, elven wanderer archer character. For me, this is one of the things I expect to see and would be shocked to not see as a character in a Kurnothi force, whether bestial or full elf. Next to that, on top, we have the old Orion model, or as it was known in Warhammer Age of Sigmar, the Avatar of the Hunt. I think this model will be represented either in a Kurnoth model, or as it was named in the original PDFs that came out, the Avatar of the Hunt. I think we'll either see some avatars of Kurnoth, or we will see Kurnoth himself in a model. And talking about this as well, we've got his little companion doggos there. In Scaiff's Wild Hunt, we've got a little Beastmaster character, and maybe a Beastmaster is something we might see, whether or not it's a character or a unit, don't know. We then got Glade Lords in a bunch of different variations, mounted and unmounted. You can see the one on the stag there, and the lady that's holding the spear and sword. I would be surprised to not see like a generic sort of Lord level character. Most armies have them. I mean, Lumineth are finally getting their generic Venari Lord. This is something that maybe we might not see to start with, as they generally try to bring out the more exciting characters first, but it's definitely something that maybe there'll be in the future for some generic Kurnothi. We've then got the Shadow Dancer above them, who is the War Dancer, and judging just by the look of Scaiff's Wild Hunt, they've taken a lot of those Mohawk sort of aesthetics and the red hair and the war paint and just that general sort of, I guess, vibe that the War Dancers had and applied that to Scaiff's Wild Hunt. So it makes me think that War Dancers may be one of the things that have taken a lot of inspiration from for the Kurnothi, or at least Scaiff's Wild Hunt, and maybe we'll see something like a Shadow Dancer come back one day. And the last model we've got there is the Spellsinger. I mean, it's a wizard. We might see a wizard, and I don't think there's much more to go into that. Tree singers and all that sort of stuff. I think that's something very likely that we might see if we get this full Kurnothi release. And so we've talked about characters, so let's talk about units, I guess. So we're going to have a little bit of a chat about all the different bits and pieces we've seen in Scaiff's Wild Hunt. I don't think there's much reason to talk about the additional archer that we've seen in Warhammer Quest Curse City, mainly because it's just another archer, and we've got an archer up here, and I think she's more of a character, more of a Way Watcher sort of character. But in Scapes Wild Hunt, these are the 5 models we've got. Now, 2 of these are sort of connected in a way, but we'll start off with Scathe himself, which is the centaur, like half stag, half elf creature on the far left. And I mean, this would be awesome to see as the cavalry for the army, some elven centaurs. I mean, Scathe himself is a fantastic looking model. And yeah, is this where Wild Riders are going in the future? I think that's something to discuss as well. Is, are Wanderers going to be a part of this faction? Do they get rolled in here, and do Wanderers become part of Sylvaneth again? Do we get that old Wood Elf aesthetic back? Maybe that's a way we go with it. But Scathe, like, if this is where the Wild Hunt's going, and this is what Wild Riders, I mean, he's got his Lamentery in there. You can see in his chest, like all Sylvaneth do as well. So this, once again, just reinforces that link with Sylvaneth here, the Lamentery. Then obviously got the Archer. I mean, if we're going to get reimagined Wood Elves, we can't not have archers. I think we've got, in this picture here, we've obviously, everyone's got the War Dancer aesthetic to them, the red hair, the mohawks, all that. That's very War Dancer aesthetic. We've got the Wild Rider in Scathe. We've got the Archer there as well. 3 major Wood Elf aesthetics just rendered into an Age of Sigmar appearance. But for me, they're the big 3 things that, as a former Wood Elf player from Warhammer Fantasy, I want to see in a Kurnothi army more than anything. We then got, on the far right, along with the lion, we've got the Beastmaster and the Beast, which is just a little lion. But I think this is cool. Wood Elves used to have Beastmasters way back in early Warhammer Fantasy, and it was really cool. Used to have your little Beastmaster with his beasts and stuff like that. I think that's a really good harken back, especially considering these War Dancers here are very much more reminiscent of your earlier edition War Dancers than the reimagined 2006 sculpts of the War Dancers. These are very much the 2nd edition War Dancers that they look like here. We've then just got a generic sort of elf with a sword. I mean, generic Kurnothi troops. That makes sense to me. And I guess I'm torn between whether is the Beastmaster and the Beast a unit, or is the Beast just a unit and the Beastmaster's a hero. Or maybe they work like Packmasters and Beasts for Skaven, so that the Beastmasters are actually just a non-hero single model. But there's definitely a lot to consider all in all with all the models we see here. But I'm really excited. I really hope we are going to get a Kurnothi army in full, because for me, they're just an awesome aesthetic. When I saw Scapes Wild Hunt, I was sold 100%. And now I've seen that Curse City model, I'm sold so much more. And I so want this to be an army. Once I'm done with what I've got on my paint desk, I'm getting my Kurnothi warband finished. I'm getting Curse City, and she is the first model I'm painting. I'm just excited to see where this goes. And so I thought it'd be wrong to talk about Kurnothi and not bring up the fantastic new model we've seen from Curse City. And I think the most interesting thing about her is that she's completely elf. There's no bestial element to it. And I've had and seen some good comments about people talking about, well, is she maybe because she's from Gairan, she's not got the bestial spirit like those from Beastgrave because they're from the realm of beasts. And that's an interesting thing. It's really hard to tell here too whether that's a Lamentery on her chest. I don't think there's actually a better picture of it showing it. And some people are talking about, are those horns actually a helmet, or actually in her head? Like, are they actually growing? And once again, there's just not a really good look at it to see what it is. So I think all in all, this is just a really sweet model that I can't wait, and she will be the first one I'm painting. She also got a lot of old Wood Elf texture in a model here. Like, you can see the sort of just the way the what's it called? The quiver is shaped in her armor pad on her side, on her thigh, and stuff like that. It's all very old Wood Elf aesthetic, with little bits here and there of some other parts. But she's a fantastic model. I just thought we had to share her in this video. But thank you all for watching. What do you think of Kurnothi? Would you like to see them as a full faction in their own right? Do you want to see them as part of Sylvaneth? Or are you just excited to get some awesome looking miniatures? let us know in the comments below. Also, if you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our fine community, you can do so by following the link down to our Discord server below in the description of the video. And while you're on YouTube, please do go check out our featured channel section where there's a bunch of other fantastic Warhammer Age of Sigmar content from a bunch of awesome content creators. Lastly though, we'd like to give a shout out to everyone who helps support the channel via Patreon, Ko-fi or YouTube members, and thank you all to James, AJC, JC, Christian Weir, Philip Ward, Soren, Kenny Lyle, Outer and Shot First, Chaos Spawn and James Crowder. Thank you all so much for your support. And if you'd like to help support the channel like these fine people do, you can do so by clicking one of the links down in the description of the video and go help support the channel. That's it from us today, everyone though. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.